This lesson is about adding and subtracting rational expressions. Remember, rational just means fractional. In order to add or subtract fractions, you must have a common denominator. Consider how this works with a regular numerical fraction. In this example, you have 5/9 plus 3/9. Since you have a common denominator, you simply add the numerators and keep the denominator. That's simple. But if you do not have a common denominator, you can create a common denominator by multiplying each fraction, top and bottom, by the factors in the other fraction's denominator. For instance, take a look at example 2. I have 5/12 plus 3/10. If you factor the denominators, 5/12 is really 5 over 2 times 2 times 3, which is 12. And 3/10 is really 3 over 2 times 5, which is 10. So, if you look at the first denominator, 2, 2, 3, it is lacking what the other denominator has, namely a 5. So I multiply that fraction top and bottom by 5. If I look at my second denominator, it has a 2 times 5, but it is lacking what the other denominator had, namely a 3 and a second 2. So I multiply that fraction top and bottom by 2 and 3. Once you're done, the first fraction, the denominator will be 2 times 2 times 3 times 5, which is 60. And the numerator will be 5 times 5, which is 25. And in the second fraction, the denominator is 2 times 2 times 3 times 5, the same numbers, so it's also 60. And in the numerator, you have 3 times 2 times 3, which is 18. And now, we have a common denominator. So we can add the numerators to get 43/60. In the above example, the common denominator is 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. Thus, the first fraction's denominator needed a 5, and the second fraction's denominator needed a 2 and a 3. You can use the same technique to find a common denominator with polynomials. Let's take a look. Example 3. Add the following rational expressions. Well, the first fraction has an x minus 3 in the denominator. The second fraction has an x plus 4 in the denominator. Thus, the first fraction's denominator needs an x plus 4, and the second fraction's denominator needs an x minus 3. So I go ahead and multiply the first fraction, top and bottom, by the x plus 4. That way the denominator has both an x minus 3 and an x plus 4. And in the second fraction, I multiply the top and bottom by x minus 3. That way, this denominator has both an x plus 4 and an x minus 3. Now that they have a common denominator, you can add the numerators, x plus 4 times x plus 2, plus x minus 8 times x minus 3, and you simply keep the common denominator. Once you have that expression, you can FOIL the top and combine like terms, and then FOIL the bottom, and you simplify the expression to this. Here are a couple practice problems. Give it a shot and then take a look at the next screen for the answer key.